Good day to you. Hello. How you doing? Hope you're having a wonderful day. I guess I threw in a lot of greetings there. That was just to get us started. I don't know if I've come up with a proper greeting all the time, but I hope you're having a wonderful day. We're reading in the book of Mark, chapter 7. We're ready to read chapter 7. We're reading for context to understand the events that are happening, what is happening, what we can learn from that. We want to understand what's being said, and we want to learn what we can from what is being said and apply that to us. So, again, we're in the book of Mark, and this is chapter 7. Well, we just read chapter 6, and in chapter 6, they had just crossed over to Gennesaret and moored to the shore. When they got out of the boat, the people recognized Jesus, and people from the whole region came to him to be healed. And wherever he came, in villages, cities, or countryside, they laid the sick in the marketplaces, and implored him that they might touch even the fringe of his garment, and as many as touched it were made well. So basically, it's just telling about how he went to Gennesaret and basically was able to, heal people and take care, and preach the gospel. And so that's what had gone on before. I wanted to give that little bit because that's where he was. Now, it doesn't say he's left there, so I imagine he's still in Gennesaret. And here's chapter 7, verse 1. Now when the Pharisees gathered to him with some of the scribes who had come from Jerusalem, they saw that some of his disciples ate with hands that were defiled, that is, unwashed. For the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands, holding to the tradition of the elders. And when they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash. And there are many other traditions that they observe, such as the washing of cups and pots and copper vessels and dining couches. And the Pharisees and the scribes asked him, "Why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat with defiled hands?" And he said to them, Well did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites, as it is written, This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain they do worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. You leave the commandment of God and hold to the tradition of men. Let me scroll our screen up here for just a second, because Jesus is going to really give them the problem right here. And in verse 9, and he said to them, You have a fine way of rejecting the commandment of God in order to establish your tradition. For Moses said, Honor your father and your mother, and whoever reviles father or mother must surely die. But you say, if a man tells his father or mother, Whatever you would have gained from me is Corban, that is, given to God, then you no longer permit him to do anything for his father or mother, thus making void the word of God by your tradition that you have handed down, and many such things you do. They had created these traditions, and they had supplanted the word of God, the laws, the correct ways of God. They had supplanted that with their own traditions, the things that they had come up with. Our traditions, a lot of our traditions are fine, as long as we don't let that take the place of the Word of God or override the Word of God. That's like our law. Our law for society, those laws are good, and it's great to follow those laws, but you don't want them to override the Word of God either. If we had laws that told us we had to do things that were in direct contrast to the Word of God, then no, we wouldn't want to follow those laws, such as idol worship or whatever, kind of like Daniel had to face. It wasn't just Daniel, though, was it? No, it was like Meshach. Oh, I can't get the words now. I can't get their names because their names are odd, and I was never good with those names, even as a kid. Anyway, that's all right. It's Abednego, Meshach. I can't get the other one, but anyway, those three guys. But the Pharisees were big on their letter of the law and the traditions of the elders, which were not the same. It should not be confused with being the Word of God. The traditions of the elders, it is not the same. That is something else. And that's like some of our traditions, some of the things we do. If I was going to pick something out, let's say Thanksgiving. The idea of the tradition is great. Being thankful, being grateful, and we take that as being thankful and grateful to God. But just the tradition of that holiday and just having a meal and being thankful and celebrating with your family, it's mainly just a tradition. There's nothing wrong with that. And as long as we don't let it override anything in the Word of God, it's a good thing. But if you took that tradition and somehow made it a legalistic thing and made it something bad, made it something that people felt like they had to do, or they were, going to go to hell, which is not true, then, that would be a bad thing. So you get the idea, I'm sure. Nonetheless, and Jesus is going to go on and he's going to talk about this better than me anyway, but I kind of just got into that there. So let's see. Let me scroll our screen again, because Jesus is going to go into this with them a little bit and do a much better job than me. All right, so verse 14. And he called the people to him again and said to them, "Hear me, all of you, and understand. There is nothing outside a person that by going into him can defile him, but the things that come out of a person are what defile him." And when he had entered the house and left the people, his disciples asked him about the parable. And he said to them, "Then are you also without understanding? Do you not see that whatever goes into a person from outside cannot defile him, since it enters not his heart but his stomach and is expelled?" And this says, "Thus he declared all foods clean." And he said, "What comes out of a person is what defiles him. For from within, out of the heart of man, come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, coveting, wickedness, deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within, and they defile a person." So Jesus is definitely making the point there. And they do mention here, "Thus he declared all foods clean," which, in essence, he definitely did, because he's saying what you eat doesn't defile you, which is true. What you eat does not defile you, at least not in the sense that we mean, not in a real, true spiritual sense. What defiles you is what comes out of your heart. Now, when you're saying and being these things, I mean, he lists everything here: evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, coveting, wickedness, deceit. I mean, these cover everything: envy, slander, pride, foolishness. When we have all that coming out of us, then we are defiled. We need to control ourselves and follow Jesus, and not have all this coming out of our hearts. If we have all that coming out of our hearts, we have an issue. We need to take care of those issues and cleanse ourselves with the Word of God and learn how to act and how to be. These are not the things we should be doing. Any of those things. So, all right. And Paul says, back in one of the epistles, Paul says to think on whatever things are good and true and pure and righteous. So if you're having trouble with some sort of thoughts that are wrong, that are bad, focus more on something that is good, that is positive. It can be something in the Word. It can also be looking around at the things that God has given you and created for us here on this earth, and being appreciative and grateful of those things. And you can think about those things. You can think about your family and your whatever you have that is good. And if all you have that is good is the Bible, if everything else is gone and that's all you have, then think about the Bible, read Psalms, read Psalms, and that will help you a lot for a lot of those things. And read Proverbs and learn how to think about different things, and then read the Gospels and make sure you pay attention to what Jesus says. And read the epistles for more learning from Paul. So I guess just read the whole thing, Alright, so let's move on. I'm going to take too long if I keep going like this. I'll get off on a tangent and will never get me back. So verse 24. And from there he arose and went away to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And he entered a house and did not want anyone to know, yet he could not be hidden. But immediately a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an unclean spirit heard of him and came and fell down at his feet. Pardon me, I'm a little froggy. Let me get something to drink here. Not sure what that's about. Sorry about that. So anyway, but immediately a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an unclean spirit heard of him and came and fell down at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile, a Syrophoenician by birth, and she begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. And he said to her, Let the children be led first, for it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. No, let the children be fed first. I apologize. Wow. I was looking at that and I was going, that didn't make any sense. So, and he said to her, Let the children be fed first, for it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. But she answered him, Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. And he said to her, For this statement you may go your way. The demon has left your daughter. And she went home and found the child lying in bed and the demon gone. So here Jesus made sure she was blessed for her faith, even though she understood that it wasn't her time. It wasn't the time of the Gentiles. She knew that he could still help her with the tiniest bit, the crumbs. That would be enough. And it's hard to think about that in a way, but just saying that even just the crumbs from Jesus, would be enough to make a huge change, enough to fix that. And that's the way it is with the Word of God a lot of times. Even just start, if you're a new Christian or if you've been a Christian and you just haven't ever read the Word of God a lot, if you can find a way to read it and study it, it will just gradually, over time, it will change your life. If you have tapes or something you can listen to it on, I listen to YouTube sometimes and different things where I can listen to different preachers or the gospel in different formats. Anyway, if you have ways, you can just start listening to that. And at first, it may not seem like a lot, just little crumbs, little changes, little things, but over time, it will make big changes. And I realize I am talking about something more than just him healing her daughter, but it just made me think of that even the crumbs, even just a little bit, will help. Get you a little devotional book, and just read a few verses a day. You will get so much out of that. Just give yourself a chance to start, and just start. And most of the times you're going to need to start small anyway. It takes time, and that's okay. That's quite all right. All right, so let's see. We're going to go down to verse 31. I've got that ready. Okay. Then he returned from the region of Tyre and went through Sidon to the Sea of Galilee, in the region of the Decapolis, and they brought... Okay, I think I'm reading this slightly off. I apologize. Then he returned from the region of Tyre and went through Sidon to the Sea of Galilee, in the region of the Decapolis. And they brought to him a man who was deaf and had a speech impediment, and they begged him to lay his hand on him. And taking him aside from the crowd privately, he put his fingers into his ears, and after spitting, touched his tongue, and looked up to heaven. He sighed and said to him, Ephphatha, which that is, be opened. And his ears were opened, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. And Jesus charged them to tell no one, but the more he charged them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. And they were astonished beyond measure, saying, He has done all things well. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. And that's true. Jesus performed all these miracles. I mean, we read here just a minute ago about, actually that was in the previous chapter, but people just touching the fringe of his garment and being healed. This was a big part of Jesus' ministry. Being the Son of God in the flesh, he had all this godly, heavenly power. I mean, all that there to heal and to help people. And he did. That was a big part of his ministry. And so for this here, I mean, it's interesting. He put his fingers in his ears, and he spat, and he touched his tongue. It's just an interesting account of how he helped this guy and opened his ears, and it says he released his tongue, he loosed his tongue, made it so that he could speak. So that was great. All right. So perhaps that's a good metaphor for those times when we're tongue-tied, or maybe we're in an argument, we're not listening well. We need to just back off and be quiet for a minute and let Jesus take over and take care of us there. And maybe it's a good one where sometimes we don't know what to say, and we just need to let Jesus kind of loose our tongue in a good way and speak things from the Word of God and speak good things. But the real true example is that's an example of him healing someone, which he did. And he the funny thing is that no matter when he healed people, when he did good things, no matter what he told them not to go tell people, of course they went and told people anyway. I would have been worried about going and telling people things that Jesus had told me to keep to myself, but that did not happen. So anyway, I want to thank you for listening, and God bless you, and we will be back with the next chapter in our next session, okay? Have a great day.